I thought the worst part was discovering my wife's affair, but I had no idea what was coming next. A shocking confession, a life-threatening secret, and a decision that would change everything. This is the story of how my world fell apart. It had been several months since my wife and I moved into a new house on the outskirts of the city, a quiet neighborhood where spacious homes sat on large lots, each separated by enough distance to offer a sense of privacy. Yet even from the beginning something felt different. Before this, we had spent over 20 years living in the city, balancing work and raising our wonderful son. But once he was ready to start his own journey, we decided to leave our old home to him and find a smaller, cozier place where we could settle down for the years ahead. Though Elsa and I weren't exactly old, we both felt drawn to the peace and quiet away from the city's constant movement. At first, I chalked up my unease to the sudden change in environment. But as time passed, that feeling only deepened. Elsa too began to change in subtle ways. Some days she'd return from visiting our new neighbors, whom she had quickly befriended, chatting nonstop about this and that. Other times she'd be unusually quiet, lost in thought as if something weighed on her mind. I tried on occasion to start a conversation, to gently ask what was occupying her thoughts so much. But she always dodged my questions with small, vague excuses. I started wondering if we had made a mistake in leaving behind the life we had always known, but Elsa reassured me she loved it here, that she just needed time to adjust. While I hadn't fully left my job, mostly working remotely with occasional trips to the office, Elsa had found a new passion, baking. It came as a surprise to both of us. She had always been a great cook, but she'd never taken much interest in pastries before. Now, with more free time, she immersed herself in it, selling her goods to the local shop and occasionally treating our neighbors. Her vanilla pastries in particular were incredible, at least in my opinion. One evening, after wrapping up another long workday, I returned home to find her lying on the couch, eyes closed, seemingly fast asleep. She hadn't noticed me come in, so I sat down beside her and gently placed my hand over hers. She stirred at my touch, blinking a few times as if pulling herself out of a dream. For a moment she looked almost startled. What's wrong?" she asked, her voice still heavy with drowsiness. "Nothing," I assured her. "You just drifted off, that's all. Are you feeling okay?" She rubbed her eyes and sighed. "I'm fine. Just a lot to do. Samantha asked me to bake a few pies for her. Her little boy's birthday is in 2 days." Elsa started to rise from the couch, intending to head back to the kitchen, but I gently took her hand, urging her to stay with me for a while. "You'll manage," I said softly. "Lately you've been overworking yourself. You need to take care of yourself too." She let out a small sigh, rolling her eyes playfully. "Oh, don't start. I enjoy doing this. What else am I supposed to do with my free time? Besides, I even get paid for it, so it's perfectly fine." Despite my concern, Elsa eventually got up and returned to the kitchen. Soon, I heard the familiar sounds of pots clattering and bowls being shuffled around. It was clear that she truly enjoyed baking, but I couldn't ignore the signs of exhaustion on her face. I worried about her, yet she was firm in insisting that she was fine. With Elsa occupied, I decided to visit our neighbor, Jack, someone I had grown quite close to since moving here. He was a skilled mechanic and I needed his help. Lately I had noticed a strange knocking sound coming from my car. "Not busy, Jack?" I greeted as I stepped onto his porch. "No, come on in," he said, waving me inside. "I just got back. Beer?" He offered kindly, but I declined, explaining the reason for my visit. Jack nodded. "I'll definitely take a look at your car, but it might have to wait a bit." He sighed and rubbed his forehead. "You see, my wife's been sick. She's been in bed for 2 days now, completely drained. I'm really worried about her. And to top it off, my daughter and grandson are coming over this evening, so I'm not sure I'll have time today." I frowned, concern growing in my chest. "That's awful. What's wrong? Have you taken her to the hospital?" Jack nodded. "Yeah, the doctor said it's her heart. It's weak. But don't worry too much, she's doing better now. Just needs time to regain her strength." I truly felt for Jack and his wife. Not wanting to overstay my welcome, I wished her a speedy recovery and headed home. As soon as I walked through the door, I decided to share the news with Elsa. "Yeah, I heard about that. It's unfortunate," she said nonchalantly as she kneaded some dough. I hesitated, taken aback. "You heard? And you didn't mention anything to me?" She glanced up briefly before returning to her work. "You were so caught up in your own things that you barely noticed what was happening around you. I didn't want to bother you. Besides, it's not really our business, they'll sort it out." Something about her response felt off. Elsa had always been empathetic, caring, especially when it came to people we knew. Though we didn't see Jack and his wife every day, we had known them well enough that I would have expected her to show more concern. But now there was a distance in her, a coldness I couldn't quite place. We talked a little longer before she eventually asked me to give her some space, saying she had things to do. The next morning, I took advantage of not having to commute to the city and allowed myself the rare luxury of sleeping in an extra hour. When I finally got up, I enjoyed a quiet breakfast, the house unusually still. I had planned to stop by Jack's house to check in on his wife's health, but before I could step out, he showed up at my door, ready to take a look at my car. I led him to the garage, and as he started his inspection, we fell into conversation. However, Jack seemed distracted, his mind elsewhere. After he finished, I decided to run an errand and pick up some supplies. Rather than driving into the city and wasting time sitting at traffic lights, I opted for a small store on the outskirts, one where I knew the shopkeeper personally. As soon as I arrived, I started scanning the shelves, quickly gathering what I needed. With my basket full, I made my way to the counter where the familiar face of Matt, the store owner, greeted me with a warm smile. "Hey Sam, it's been a while since you've stopped by," he said as he began ringing up my items. "Yeah, just been busy lately," I replied, glancing around the shop. "Looks like you've stocked up on more goods since my last visit." Matt chuckled. "Well, you know how it is, my brother helps out and we've been expanding a bit." After chatting briefly, I paid for my things and headed home. As soon as I walked in, I noticed that Elsa wasn't there. I checked the rooms, but the house was empty. A strange feeling settled in my chest, and after waiting a bit, I decided to call her. She didn't answer right away, but when she finally picked up, her voice was cheerful, almost carefree. That only made my unease grow. "When are you coming home?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. I didn't want to bring up my concerns over the phone. I needed to see her face when she answered. Elsa responded casually, "I'm at Samantha's. I'll be home soon." Despite her reassurance, my impatience got the best of me. To pass the time, I found myself drifting toward her desk, running my fingers over the surface. I wasn't even sure why I felt the need to snoop, but something deep inside me was urging me to look. Maybe she was planning some surprise for me, I tried to reason with myself. But another part of me refused to stay in the dark. The desire to know the truth overpowered everything else. Frustration bubbled up inside me, my thoughts spiraling. I picked up my phone again and dialed her number. When she answered, I could hear the slightest hesitation in her voice. "Since when do you care about saving gas?" I asked, my words sharper than I intended. "Answer me, who are you with? What are you hiding from me?" My jealousy quickly morphed into anger, and by the time she finally walked through the door, I was already wound up. I grabbed her wrist as she tried to walk past me, not letting her slip away. "Damn it, Sam, let go. You're hurting me," she shouted, struggling against my grip. "Have you completely lost your mind?" Her voice echoed through the house, but I wasn't sure if it was out of fear or frustration. And for the first time, I realized I might not be ready for the answer I was demanding. I pulled Elsa closer, tightening my grip on her wrist. My other hand moved instinctively, as if trying to steady both her and my own turbulent emotions. Meanwhile, over at Jack's house, I had been speaking with his wife, Lisa, for a few minutes before Jack returned. The moment he stepped inside, I noticed something strange. He didn't look the least bit worried about his wife's condition. In fact, there was an unusual cheerfulness in his demeanor. But as soon as he laid eyes on me, his expression shifted instantly, as if he had just remembered he was supposed to be concerned. Lisa must have sensed the tension because she excused herself, giving us space. I greeted Jack, keeping my tone neutral, and struck up a casual conversation about Elsa's baking. I mentioned that she had planned to donate some of her sweets to another store. "Really?" Jack raised an eyebrow. "She never mentioned that before." That response lingered in my mind as I made my way back home. The unease that had been building inside me for weeks only grew heavier. Something was off, I could feel it, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. When I walked through the door, my mood must have been obvious because Elsa immediately picked up on it. But instead of asking gently, she turned the tables, demanding to know what was wrong with me. That only fueled my frustration. The argument that followed was the worst we'd had in years. Even as we yelled, Elsa still tried to cover her tracks, only slipping up once. "You barely pay attention to me anymore," she blurted out. "As a woman, I feel lonely sometimes." That one sentence hit me like a gut punch. But before I could press her further, she quickly backtracked, twisting her words, redirecting the conversation, trying to wriggle her way out of it. I couldn't take it anymore. The anger, the doubt, the endless questions with no answers. I needed to get out of there. Without another word, I grabbed my keys and left, heading straight to a nearby bar to drown my emotions in whiskey. But even as I sat there, glass in hand, the thoughts wouldn't stop. I needed proof. A few days later, I reached out to Lisa, hoping she might unknowingly confirm my suspicions. We arranged to meet at a small cafe on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where no one would overhear us. The moment she sat down, she looked at me warily. "All right, Sam, what game are you playing? I don't want to get caught up in whatever's going on between you and Elsa." "Just hear me out," I said, leaning forward. "I know you might not like what I'm about to ask, but your help could answer a lot of questions." I had to bluff a little, plant just enough doubt to make her speak freely. And as I did, a plan began to form. Later that night, while Elsa was asleep, I took action. First, I installed small cameras around the house. Nothing too obvious, just enough to monitor any unusual activity. Then, without her noticing, I added an app to her phone that would allow me to track her location. With these precautions in place, I hoped I would finally get the truth. But the next 3 days passed in complete silence. Nothing happened. No late-night calls, no suspicious activity. Even when I drove into the city and stayed at the office longer than necessary, hoping to catch her meeting someone at the house, there was nothing. It was like she knew I was watching. Or maybe, just maybe, I really was losing my mind. I started to doubt myself, wondering if I had let paranoia cloud my judgment. Maybe Elsa and Jack weren't hiding anything after all. Maybe I was chasing shadows. But then, while rummaging through one of the drawers, I stumbled upon a small bottle of liquid drops. At first, I didn't think much of it. Medicine was usually kept in the cabinet, not tucked away in a drawer like this. Something about it seemed off, so I decided to dig a little deeper. A quick search revealed that these drops were indeed medication, but in high doses they could be dangerous, potentially even lethal. A cold wave of realization washed over me. I needed answers. Without hesitation, I called Elsa's doctor, describing what I had found. His response sent a chill down my spine. Yes, in large quantities this could have caused a seizure, he confirmed. But who prescribed them to her? And why was she taking them in the first place? A thick silence followed. Lisa, who had been listening in, paled as the weight of the situation sank in. Everything unraveled quickly after that. When I finally confronted Jack, his reaction said it all. He didn't even try to deny it. He just glared at me, his face betraying fear, not because he expected me to hit him, but because he knew he had been exposed. "You ruined my life. You turned my own daughter against me," he screamed, his voice shaking with rage. His words did nothing to stop me. My own fury had reached its peak, and before I could think twice, my fist connected with his face. He tried to fight back, twisting and struggling, but my anger was stronger. Within moments, he was sprawled on the living room floor, breathless, right next to a packed suitcase. "Where are you off to?" I asked, my voice sharp as I stood over him. Jack groaned, refusing to answer, but I could already guess. He had been planning to run. It wasn't long before the authorities got involved. When I handed over the recording I had secretly made of our conversation, the officer sighed. "This might not be admissible in court, it was obtained illegally. But we'll do everything we can." Now all I could do was wait. Pray that Jack's wife would recover, that the doctors could stabilize her condition. She was the only direct witness to what had happened, and her testimony was crucial. Jack was arrested and taken away. The house finally felt still. I picked up the phone and called Lisa. "You can come home now," I told her. There was hesitation on the other end, but I could hear the relief in her voice. "The doctor called," she said quietly. "My mom might be okay." A few weeks later, just when I thought things were settling down, another mystery presented itself. One evening, while reviewing footage from the recently installed doorbell camera, I noticed something unsettling. Someone had entered my house. But there was no footage of them leaving. Strangely, when I checked the recordings again the next day, the footage had been erased. That single detail gnawed at me, pushing me into detective mode once again. I couldn't shake the feeling that my soon-to-be ex-wife had something to do with this. She knew me well, too well. And I could tell, she had noticed that I was growing more suspicious by the day. What she didn't know was that I wasn't about to let this go. The evidence I had found, likely captured by the doorbell camera before it was erased, only confirmed what I had already suspected. Elsa had been covering her tracks, but she wasn't as careful as she thought. Lately, I had been questioning everything, our relationship, my choices, and whether this entire marriage had just been a rebound for her. Maybe I had been too blind, too dedicated. When I commit, I go all in. That's who I am. And maybe that was my biggest mistake. Now, I don't even believe in people anymore. Relationships, love, trust. It all feels like a pointless game. I can't see myself ever trusting anyone again. So here it is. No confrontation. No revenge. No dramatic exposure of the truth. Just two broken lives torn apart beyond repair. What's left now? Just a void. I have to figure out how to rebuild myself, not for pride, not for ego, but because I have no other choice. And yet, in this moment, it just feels like another failure, another ordinary Tuesday. Except it isn't. I think back to the Christmas before last, to a conversation that now feels like it happened in another lifetime. We had been talking about how our intimacy had faded, how we had ended up in a dead bedroom. I admitted something I had barely even let myself think about, how years ago we suffered through multiple premature births. Each loss had crushed me. After that, I became afraid to get too close, afraid of accidentally getting her pregnant and reliving that devastation all over again. That fear led both of us down a dark path. We struggled with depression, barely clawing our way out of it with sheer luck and the support of others. But now here we were, standing at the edge of something even worse. She pleaded for another chance, swearing she had never done anything like this before, promising she would do whatever it took to fix things. And as much as I wanted to, I couldn't give in. All I wanted was to go back, to any moment from the past year, even to the worst times we had endured together, because anything would be better than this. But for the first time I stood my ground. I don't see a way for us to be together now, I told her. A year has passed since that moment, and I still can't imagine feeling the same way about her again. There was only one question left that I needed to ask. When I finally did, she sat there in silence, unable, or unwilling, to answer. I tell myself I have to keep moving forward, to not sink too deep into the weight of it all. As I sit in the basement, lost in thought, I faintly hear the sound of water running through the pipes. At first I barely notice it, but then it hits me. The shower is on. Confused, I walk upstairs and confirm it. Elsa is in the shower. What the heck? Instead of confronting her, I go to the kitchen, make myself a cup of coffee and step outside to my car. I consider driving away, just leaving everything behind. But in the end, I just sit in the driveway staring at nothing, feeling completely numb. I start typing a long, angry message, a final goodbye, a list of all the things I want to say, but after a few moments I stop myself. What's the point? Instead, I head back inside thinking I should start packing. But before I can move, my gaze drifts to my bourbon collection. The bottles seem to stare back at me, tempting me with an escape even if only for a little while. And for the first time in a long time, I don't know what my next move should be. I'll admit, I had already poured myself a good drink earlier. If I had another this early in the day, I knew everything would spiral further, and today would be an even bigger mess than it already was. Alright, here's what happened. Sunday arrived after yet another sleepless night, just hours of packing and drowning in misery. Sorting through our belongings, I found myself sifting through old memories, pictures, and keepsakes we had chosen together. The wedding album, the little trinkets from trips we took, all of it only stirred up emotions I was desperately trying to suppress. But I pushed through, forcing myself to stay focused. Then Elsa showed up. She started talking about how I seemed ready to leave again, asking if we could at least talk. Her presence alone annoyed me. I wasn't in the mood for another conversation that would lead nowhere. But as much as I wanted to be strong, I knew this wasn't easy. I don't have much time, I told her. I need to get back soon to help my parents. If there's something important, say it now. If necessary, we can talk while I'm driving. She nodded, saying she understood. But she also insisted that she really wanted to talk about what had happened. Then came the confession. She admitted she had convinced herself she could live without intimacy. She had even told herself that if I ever wanted to be with someone else, she would accept it, something that sounded like typical cheater talk. But then she said something that confirmed all my suspicions. She brought up our conversation from the Christmas before last, the one where we had argued about our lack of intimacy. I had told her the truth back then, that I had become afraid of getting too close, terrified of accidentally getting her pregnant and reliving the losses we had suffered before. But in her mind, I had been making excuses. She thought I had used IVF as a way to distance myself, that I never really wanted her or a family. She believed my fear was just a cover for something deeper, that maybe I never truly loved her the way she had needed me to. Hearing her say that sent a fresh wave of anger through me. So that's it. I blurted out. You convinced yourself that I didn't love you, so you decided cheating for an entire year was justified? She tried to argue, tried to twist things into some kind of reasoning that would make her betrayal seem like the inevitable result of my emotional distance. She begged for another chance, saying that now, finally, she understood everything and that I should at least let her prove she deserved forgiveness. but I had nothing left to give. I had spent years trying to connect with her, making an effort to be romantic, to engage, to show her that I was still here. But she had barely acknowledged my efforts. And the worst part? I had made the mistake of being vulnerable. I had shared my deepest fears, thinking it would bring us closer. I had opened up in ways I never had before. And yet, here we were. Now, all I could think was, if I had never let my guard down, if I had never shared those things with her, would this have happened? Had my honesty been a mistake all along? I keep thinking, I wouldn't even be in this mess if I had just followed my instincts. It almost feels like karma because, truth be told, I had been considering leaving her last fall anyway. And yet, here I am, going through the motions, caught in the wreckage of what our marriage has become. If this situation has proven anything, it's that I should never have let my guard down. I should have played the part of the happy guy, kept everything light, never let anyone see too deep. Because the moment I did, I lost everything. I keep asking myself if I somehow ruined what we had. I still don't know. What I do know is that I'm consulting with my attorney, trying to navigate my next steps, because I honestly don't see a way to come back from this. There's something that keeps sticking with me, something she said about not sending personal things to work. At first it seemed harmless. It made sense. Keeping personal life separate from work is normal. But then it hit me, she must have used her work phone for all of this. Her personal phone was always spotless. I would know because I was the one who updated it for her last Christmas when she got a new watch. Had I overlooked something? Probably. It's been about a month since my last post about the disaster my life has become. About my wayward wife, as some would call it. The situation only kept unraveling. Then, out of nowhere, I got a call. Elsa had been hospitalized. At first, I panicked, thinking something serious had happened. But after speaking with the doctor, I learned it had been a panic attack. However, there was something else. She had also admitted to having constant self-harming thoughts, so they had kept her under observation. She had been there ever since. I had to call her boss to inform them she'd be out of work for medical reasons, which felt surreal. As much as I resented her, I never wanted her to spiral like this. After speaking with the doctor, I realized I needed to go see her. The doctor told me she had specifically requested a visit but advised me to remain calm, non-confrontational. She was in a fragile state. I was confused. Did I even want to see her? What would I say? But in the end I went. When I arrived at the hospital the next day, she was still asleep, hooked up to monitors. At first, I assumed it was just routine, maybe for dehydration or something similar. But standing there watching her sleep, something unexpected happened. For the first time in what felt like forever, I saw her not as the person who had betrayed me, but as the woman I had once loved. She looked peaceful, almost like the version of her I had fallen for all those years ago. And that realization? It hurt more than anything else. It's been a whirlwind of emotions, like a perfect storm of everything crashing down on her at once. In a strange, almost cruel way, it feels like karma. She had been feeling completely overwhelmed, and at her lowest point she thought ending her life would be easier than facing me, facing this illness, facing the reality of everything she had lost. She was already losing her marriage, her stability, and now, on top of it all, she was facing the possibility of losing her life. She even admitted that part of her reasoning was not wanting me to suffer from the burden of her medical debts. In her mind, leaving me the house, combined with her life insurance, would give me a fresh start. But somehow I managed to convince her that none of that mattered. I just wanted her to fight. At the same time, I had to be practical. I spoke with my lawyer about how all of this affects our separation. Legally, we can still be considered separated as long as certain boundaries remain intact, which, given the circumstances, wouldn't be an issue. My biggest concern now is how to avoid being financially responsible for any of her medical debt, especially since this situation is likely to delay our divorce proceedings. My lawyer advised that we could amend our settlement agreement, but she would have to agree that none of the financial obligations fall on me. I hate how this feels, like I'm bargaining with her life. But at the end of the day, everyone has their limits. In the coming days, she will undergo surgery for additional biopsies and a major operation. The treatment plan is aggressive, but the doctors believe it's the best chance to stop the spread before it's too late. I don't need all the details, just knowing that she's getting the care she needs is enough for now. Ironically, as my post title suggests, her affair might have saved her life. If not for her infidelity, she likely wouldn't have caught this in time. So, in some strange way, I guess someone in this mess gets a win. I appreciate all the comments and advice from those who have followed my story. I know it all comes from a place of support, even if it's been a roller coaster of emotions. Meanwhile, I noticed something else. She had blocked one of his phone numbers, but there was another unknown number in her messages. I checked and sure enough it was him. I kept their conversation as evidence. He had been reaching out, asking how she was, even apologizing for how he treated her the last time they met. There's a whole backstory there, one I don't even want to get into. But basically, even now, even after everything, the past refuses to stay buried. I tracked down the guy she had been involved with and things got messy, dangerous even. He had reached out to her and she agreed to meet him, probably in an attempt to avoid legal trouble. But in the end it didn't matter. It all caught up with him anyway. That was almost a month ago. Since then, things have been a blur. I did see some improvement in her condition. She responded well to the stronger medications, and they finally moved her out of intensive care. She'll probably spend some time in rehab before coming home, which, according to the doctors, might happen as soon as Thursday. Then, out of nowhere, Helen's best friend Mia reached out to me. We hadn't spoken since everything fell apart. I had assumed she was firmly on Helen's side, which is why I never expected to hear from her. I had actually left Mia a voicemail the night after Helen's first surgery, just in case she hadn't heard about what was happening. I told her that Helen might not make it through the night and that if she wanted to see her, she should come soon before it was too late. I wasn't sure if she ever got that message until now. During our conversation, Mia mentioned something unexpected, about a situation that happened in her own marriage. Her husband had apparently developed a crush on someone at work but never acted on it. Eventually he realized what he was risking and came back to her. According to Mia, it had been a tough time but they worked through it. I didn't have much to say about it, other than advising her to make sure he was telling the whole truth. I hadn't seen anything about this in Helen's messages, but then again we're all over 50. We probably rely more on phone calls than texting, so it made sense that there wouldn't be a digital trail. The cruelest irony in all of this, the ultimate slap in the face for both of us, was discovering what Helen had asked Mia to do. Helen had been advising Mia on what to do if her condition worsened, how to resuscitate her, how to handle certain complications. But then there was something more chilling. Helen wasn't sure if, in the event of a decline, I would be willing to take her off life support. She had expressed to Mia that if she reached a state of unbearable suffering or permanent disability, she didn't want to continue living. And then she asked Mia, her best friend, to convince me to let her go if it ever came to that. I still don't know what to do with that information. I don't even know what circumstances, other than being brain dead, would legally allow such a decision. And more than anything, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about it.